Hello everybody, my name's Chrissy Lowry. I'm the presenter of the Craft to Be Kind show. I'm here today with a lovely lady called Bib Charles, aka Chrissy. We've had a little conversation about that because we've got the same names and I was trying to find her. This is obviously in Craft to Be Kind as well in the group. If you're part of the group, you can pop in and watch this. And if you are, I will ignore you because it's a podcast. Chrissy, welcome to my podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Chrissy to Chrissy, it's weird. Although you call yourself Bib. So I think to start with, tell us a little about you, about where you come from, why do they call you Bib? Why do they call you Bib? That's a good one.
Okay. So I come from Gloucestershire. The Forest of Dean is where I grew up. And they call me Bib because it's a really silly story, but it's been from a long time when I was sat in the car with my sister, my twin sister, and my best friend. They started erupting into a massive argument. And I was sat in the back of the car and I was like, oh, and they were trying to involve me in their argument. And I was like, I don't want to be involved. And I just kind of shouted back at them, I don't want to be involved, Bib. And I meant to say babe. And it just broke the sort of anger between them. And they just both were like, Bib, like that. And so then from that, they then started to just call me Bib instead of babe. So everybody started to call me Bib. That kind of trickled in. The Forest of Dean is a very small place. So I started to become known as Bib. And then from that, I then set up my own makeup company and I used that as my tagline. So my first makeup company was called BIB, Be in Beauty. And so I just thought it was a really nice type of thing, but it also kind of outlined like me. And it was when people suddenly started calling me and asking for Bib, it was just taking too long to say, no, I'm not Bib, I'm Chrissy. I was just, one day I remember so clearly, I was like, yeah, it's Bib here. And then it's just been like that ever since. So it's been like that now for probably about 16, 17 years.
Yeah, I like
So
it.
that's basically my name now.
I like it. That's a really cool name. And I've got twins as well. So are you still in
Yeah.
Gloucestershire?
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
still in Gloucestershire. I'm closer to Gloucester now rather than the Forest of Dean, though.
Yeah, so you're not very far. You're probably about 20 minutes away from me then. I used to not live. I used to work in Gloucester. I used to be a nurse in Gloucester. So I know Gloucester very well. So, and I suppose we need to know a little bit about what brought you into being an author. And we just had a little talk as well. And you are writing. Is this your first? So let me tell the audience a little about Girls Who Refuse to Quit. Is a book. Is a third series, isn't it? Third series book. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I'm free.
Are you in the third one? Obviously, are you in the others, or is it just this? Is
Yeah,
it this one?
uh,
Because it's
just
different
this
authors in
one,
each
yeah.
one, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
So,
Cassandra, and we
so
had
what it is,
her. Go on.
sorry,
No, go on.
what it is it's a collaboration book. So it's different women's experiences of their sort of struggles and what they've been through. And each of them hit like particularly in this one, volume 3, hit more kind of like mental health issues, because mental health is coming out of being a taboo as much now, and people are looking to get a lot more help with stuff, and not actually realizing that stress can be a level of mental health, just depending on how sort of serious it is, and the majority of people, if they're not experiencing mental health, they will know a loved one who is. So this collaboration in particular has sort of brought quite a bit of attention along that side of things. So that's really good.
Now that's my actual sort of part of me because I used to be a psychiatric nurse specialist, so I'm really up on the mental health. And it only published. It was only launched. It's only last Thursday, was it?
On Yeah, last Thursday, the 4th of February.
4th of February. So it's all really brand new, so people can go and buy this book from Amazon. But let's tell us a little bit about your story and how you came to write your chapter.
So basically, I was kind of ignoring um, advances from people kind of sort of nominating me to speak to Cassandra Farron, who is the publisher, and she brings all of us together. She obviously, it's her third volume, so she was looking for inspirational people who've been through sort of experiences that she feels need to be shown to the world and heard. And people sort of kept mentioning my name to her, and I was like, kind of like, no, 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 I don't want to be involved, because I felt like I wasn't ready to be involved because of where I am in my sort of recovery from what happened to me, which I'll say about in a second.
Mm-hmm.
But after a while, she was like, right, just have an interview. And I was like, right, okay, I'll have an interview with you. And then I got selected to be in the book, because she said that she felt that my story was too unique not to be heard. So I was procrastinating, because it's just that sort of healing sort of process that you're going through, and you're like, oh God, no, I can't. So what actually happened to me is I had an accident 6 years ago, and I just misplaced my footing on a step. However, so I thought that the step was like this high, but it was actually that high. So I
Mm-hmm.
overcompensated. But what was to happen next, I had absolutely no idea that it would completely change my life as I knew it, basically. I sustained incredible injuries, which left me unable to walk for 16 months. So I broke my foot, ankle, and entire leg. But where it was so badly damaged, it's called a pylon fracture, which is it's very rare. Only about 3% of people actually get it. And it's basically everything, but it's broken bones, it's damaged the ligaments, cartilage, like everything, basically. So I was left unable to walk. And then I was in hospital for 31 days and just having to recover. But where my friend picked me up and then dropped me, well, let go of my arm, because she thought I'd just done a silly like little fall.
Mm.
I fell again and I rolled back and hit my head, which caused me memory loss.
Oh my
So I had a head
word.
injury then as well. So basically, I lost my long-term memory, came back quite quickly, but my short-term memory and all of that was just gone. So then I was then having to sort of rehabilitate myself, and get through all the struggles of that, because that was physically very difficult. In the beginning stages, I was sleeping for 20 hours a day because my body literally couldn't move. That was all it could do.
Mm-hmm.
When they told me in the hospital that it was a really bad injury, I didn't believe them. He said it was going to be about 24 months recovery to sort of be walking normally again. I was like, yeah, yeah. And when it got to 12 months and I was still not walking, I was like, okay, I think I believe him now. So 16 months, I finally came off the crutches.
Wow.
But so what my story is about is partly the rehabilitation, but then when the mental health side of things comes into it, when I started to regain my memory, I was hit with flashbacks. So I then had severe complex post-traumatic stress disorder,
Mm-hmm.
to like the severest level that you can get. So basically sort of being attacked by these flashbacks on a daily basis. And this was after my body had kind of mended. So I've actually been in recovery from this accident for 6 years.
So it happened 6 years
But
ago.
yeah,
Yeah.
6 years in January the 3rd. Um, so, but what's happened now is that I have put myself through the eye of the needle to come out of the panic attacks and really push myself to learning about them, because they were the most scariest thing I've ever experienced. Along with having sort of memory loss, it's a very, very bizarre situation. And then the complex side of it was other trauma started to come in from when I was younger, and just things that I, didn't even realize was there. So memories would come back and flash up, and so it then became complex. But it was the processing in my mind which was attacking me physically coming out of my body. but the mind has got it confused. So my part is in the book is explaining what the actual attacks are and linking it to a bit of my experience. Obviously, we've only got a chapter each, so you can't focus too much on it. But leading on to my book that is actually coming out, it's called Pixie in the Woods, and it's a self-help book
Oh,
for
amazing.
actual techniques and tools I have actually taught myself through my sort of journey. And I found these to be extremely helpful. So basically, it's the last year that I'm focusing on where I've really strengthened my recovery, and I'm now actually able to live a normal day-to-day life without being in fear, without having these. I have the attacks still, and I'm not going to lie, I have them on a regular basis, but it's now the difference that I'm not scared during my life at the moment. I'm still scared in the attacks when they happen, but I'm strengthening the muscle every single attack I have. So with that being said, I've split it into 3 categories. One, how to help the people who are actually having the attacks and experiencing it. 2, to help their families and loved ones be able to identify with them. And 3, going into workplaces and employers, helping their employees who suffer with it, but also people coming into businesses. So, for example, I had one on the train. The guy didn't know what to do. And I basically kind of almost got mid-attack, had to teach him whilst being attacked. So I've managed to get myself into a level where I can read and gauge now what's happening and what I need physically to bring you out of that attack. So it's the tools and techniques that I am really pushing out there now, which I feel is vitally important for humankind,
Absolutely.
basically.
Absolutely. And
It's
within
almost like
this last year has been horrendous for people, and it's been worse, obviously, for mental health. And you've written all that through lockdown, then, through the first lockdown up until now. That's what you've been
yes,
working on.
basically that was my main thing. Is when lockdown happened last March, I was still in an unstable place, and I was very much needing to be with people. I'd only just started coming out again, because I went for a time of not being able to leave the house because they were so bad and anything would trigger. But then I pushed myself to coming out again and started having attacks in public and things like that. So when we went into lockdown, oh my gosh, I went into meltdown because
I
I was like,
bet.
I'm actually going to be on my own. I managed to get to the point of being able to live on my own again, but I was close to my mum and my sisters, so I would have someone there. So it was actually, I can honestly say, lockdown was the maker of me, because I had to then do it on my own. Whereas before, I couldn't do it on my own. And I think this is the thing. So I've been experiencing flashbacks and post-traumatic stress disorder for about 3 years. And it's actually good to have a pinpoint. So that was obviously March on March on March I'm doing it, because I lived in Cardiff, and that was when I was at my worst time. And I actually moved in the March because my family moved me. They were like, you're in a bad way. We need to get you over here so you're safe. And then I lived with my mum for a bit in the March. So, and it's funny how it's happened March, March, March. So the next significant point was lockdown in March, and where I really had to push myself into rewiring my mind, basically.
Yeah.
And through doing that, I found really good techniques into actually enabling me to get through it on my own.
So you self-taught
Um,
yourself. You researched, did you? Yeah.
yes, so I researched everything. I researched everything down to diet, what happens emotionally, trauma that is locked up inside, because actually we're just a physical body and we've got trauma that's trapped inside, inevitably because we've had something happen to us. And it needs to get out. So I've sort of done things like rewiring my brain and sort of said, right, actually, this is just my physical body having a reaction, telling my mind and my body that it needs to come out. It
Mhm.
needs to come out to be healed. And each attack I have is actually a healing process. You know, if you think about the flu or something like that, each time you have it, you make yourself immune to it,
Mhm.
and it's actually so you build a kind of a thicker skin, or I don't really
Resistance.
know how to explain it, but yes, that's it. Yes. So um, until they sort of cease to exist anymore, and you stop getting, ill or whatever. So it's really interesting the way that you actually manage to sort of reframe your mind and your thought process. But it's also very interesting going back to the beginning of when they started to happen, looking at what happens. And I think that's the part that a lot of people miss. When people are experiencing panic attacks and things like that, they don't know what it is they're experiencing. So they freak out. Then
Mm.
that then leads to other sort of mental health stuff, depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, things like that. Um, but I have actually managed to separate the difference and outline the difference between anxiety attacks and panic attacks. They are very different,
Yeah.
and they're actually from different things. But I think that this is what the majority of people don't know. So people having anxiety attacks might think they're having a panic attack, and vice versa. Um, but yeah, like I said, so I say all of this in my book about how different they are, and I've started to vlog
Oh, did you?
on my page on Facebook, Pixie in the Woods, just to basically help people.
Where
But
can they? Where can
understanding
your?
what happened.
For people who's listening to the podcast, where can they listen to that? Where was that? Where can they see your vlog or hear your vlog?
On Facebook at the moment,
It's
and
Facebook.
it's called Pixie in the Woods. Yes.
Okay. Pixie in the Woods,
Uh,
Facebook.
yeah.
Awesome. And then
And
when
then
does your book launch?
So I haven't got an exact date yet,
Okay.
but it's looking like it's going to be August.
Oh wow.
So sometimes the publishing is a little, if how things go and everything.
Yeah.
Um, I'm looking at August, but I'm actually kind of hoping to push it further, like closer now, because I'm on one. Now that this has come out, I'm like, right, I need to get it out there because I feel so strongly that this needs to be heard. And also when I talk about the training and stuff for workplaces, I personally feel it's like a first aid kit for panic attacks, because a lot of people, they don't actually know. So when you break it down, the loved ones around you, they've got their own set of thoughts and feelings.
Mhm.
They don't understand what's going on. And so they need their own support as well. And so it's also tools and techniques for them to help their loved ones and to get into a it's also about what I've done is separate understanding and identifying. So it wasn't until I really truly learnt that I was on my own that I could then get the help I needed. Nobody would ever be able to understand what I was going through because it is my own unique experience. Likewise, I can't understand what someone else is going through because it's their own unique experience. You can't physically get into someone's mind, but you can identify. So it's about being identifiable
Yeah, and
and
you can
finding
learn,
some.
can't you? People can learn, and you can
Yeah,
educate, and you can.
yeah,
People can buy the book, and like you said, in the workplace, that's amazing. There is nothing around, is there? I don't think. I'm thinking of my mental health experiences. Well, I was community nurse at that time. That'd be a really good thing that people. I presume it'd be on Amazon. Will it
yes,
be? So people will be able to go on Amazon and purchase your book.
yes, definitely. I'm like really, really excited about it. I just feel like because the tools I have created for myself and the methods and techniques I found that work for me, because I've been documenting everything and I've been studying it, but for myself.
Yeah.
And not letting anything go amiss. And normally people are like, oh God, don't analyze everything so much. But I'm like, no, this needs to be analyzed because I'm going to help people. And
And
there's
that's what
not enough
drives
help
you.
out
That's what drives you, babe.
there.
I've written a book and I've got another one coming out. That's actually what drives you. It's because you want to help.
Yeah, it is. Also, I'm looking to long-term set up a charity. I know there's a lot of hard work to do with charities, but when that book comes out, every single purchase that is made, it's not going into my pocket, it's actually going into mental health. I was going to do it and put it into Mind first, because Mind did actually help me in the beginning. So I really feel strongly that this is not for money at all for me. This is to actually create a space for people to be healthy. And it is specifically catered for, it does touch on other mental health stuff, but it's specifically for attacks, panic attacks, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and anxiety attacks. Not so much the depression side of things, even though I have been in a depressed place, and I do understand depression because I did have suicidal thoughts and stuff, but the suicidal thoughts I had was more because the attacks were so bad. All I could do was look around and want to throw myself in front of a bus to make the attack stop.
Yeah.
So it wasn't so much like I to end my life, but then afterwards, going out of the attack and coming back into presence, I would then beat myself up and think badly, think, oh God, but why am I having these thoughts? So then you then go into depression.
Yeah.
So they all kind of interlink.
They do.
But it is mainly about understanding the differences between them. Mm-hmm. So not collapsing it all together. And the fact that I actually I was diagnosed with complex post-traumatic stress disorder. It's just quite funny, really, because I'm talking about not collapsing it together, yet I collapsed everything. So it's like, actually, I've experienced collapsing it together and experienced how much that messed me up. So therefore, I'm then able to go back and analyze and look at what I did.
But you helped yourself. I think it's an amazing story, Bev, where you actually went through absolutely horrendous time, and it does affect you. It affects you for years. Things that have happened to me will affect for years. My boy who was just in here, that you might have seen me going, he was bullied when he was 6 years old, and it still affects him now at 13. It does. And you've gone around and done something very unique. You've gone and helped yourself and healed yourself, recorded it and researched it. As a nurse, this is awesome. I think this is wonderful. And then you're going to provide a self-help book for someone to go out, and if they're suffering, they can then find it on Amazon, and maybe you'll have it elsewhere, who knows, and they'll be able to help treat themselves, which is amazing. You should feel very proud. Do you?
Yeah, I do.
Good.
And I must admit, by having my chapter in this book, the Girls Who Refuse to Quit, it really was kind of almost like, although I was procrastinating at first and I found it hard to write my chapter and was like crying and all of this stuff as you're writing, afterwards I just felt, oh my God,
cathartic.
That is literally like, finally, like I feel like, that it was meant to be. And by reading the other women's stories as well, and obviously meeting them, we haven't met personally because of COVID, but we've done a lot of online talking and stuff like that, and their stories are amazing, and their stories are healing as well. So their stories helped to heal me, and the support that actually is out there when you basically speak and you have the opportunity to be able to speak is amazing. And Cassandra Farron is amazing because she's brought all of us together,
3 times she's done that
at a time when it,
so 3 times in a year, wasn't
it? Yeah, so very, very quickly, she's a force of nature. She's amazing. But this one particularly is at a time where we've all been locked in, and we've all been in COVID, and there's a lot of stuff going quite drastic, with people's mental health.
Yeah.
A lot of people suffering, and a lot of people suffering on their own, and it doesn't need to be that way. So so this was just kind of like the final cherry on the cake for me, was doing this, and it's given me the strength now to really push it now
and to go on and make yours.
So I
Didn't
did.
didn't this get #1 in the first day or something? It did. I thought it
Yeah, so
did.
it went bestseller in 7 different categories, so that's really good. Yeah, so that's a bit weird as well to sort of think, oh, all of a sudden I'm an author, and then not only am I an author, I'm a
Number
best-selling
one.
author.
Absolutely.
So
It's amazing. Incredible, incredible. So like I said, people can find this in Amazon. It's The Girls Who Refused to Quit. There is 3 series, and Cassandra, she's written 7 books, hasn't she?
yeah, she has. One of her main storylines is obviously based on true stories, true events, is her mum having dementia, and how that is again. So how it is looking in, and also trying to find a way to identify, also knowing that you're losing your mum. And her mum did actually die just before Christmas.
Mm,
So that was going on whilst we were trying to publish this, and she still managed to come out and publish it and do it. Do you know what I mean? So
incredible.
she's such an amazing, strong person. Um, but also knowing that her mum was, never going to read this book or read her final story and read her final chapter is very, very like, oh God, is very,
Yeah.
but people have these experiences, and they feel on their own. So by reading that experience from someone else, they're like, wow, I'm not on my own. But going back to what I said earlier, my spin off on it is it's not until you truly know that you're on your own and you accept that you're on your own, because of the thing that no one can actually physically be you and get inside your mind and think exactly the same as how you're going to think.
Mm,
That is when you find the healing, and it's identifiable. Then you find people to identify with you,
yeah.
and you will find people out there who will be able to help you. So then you then create a space of like love and to be helped, and then also giving that over for other people as well. So
That's
you know what they
amazing.
say? They say love graciously, and that actually comes back to you, and you don't even realize. It's like a mirror, isn't it? A ripple
Yeah.
effect.
No, I totally agree. What you put out in the universe comes back. Absolutely. Totally agree with that. Oh, that's been
Definitely.
amazing. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us before we sign off, or have you done all what you wanted to say?
Oh, I don't know. I think I'm done.
You're done. Well, I think we need to watch
I
this
do think
space.
a lot of it.
I think we need to watch this space. I think we need to check out, obviously, the volume 3, and we need to watch the space for Bib Charles to come out with Pixie in the Woods. I won't forget it. So it's a very resonating story that people will remember.
The Pixie in the Woods, if I actually just explain that, it's quite
Yeah,
funny what
yeah,
I've
do
done
that.
with that. So basically, the name for the title actually represents a pixie. So a pixie is mischievous. A pixie is kind of like uncertain. It's unknown. Is it real? Isn't it? You know, is it just a dream? They're quite creative. They're quite magical. They have a light, a lot of them, their wings, things like that. So that represents somebody, e.g., me in my book, but also other people going into an uncertainty in their mind of confusion, because a lot of pixies are confused. Then the woods represent beauty, because woods are beautiful, but when it gets dark in the woods, and if you
Gary.
get lost, it's a very, very scary place.
Mm.
And if you're on your own, so basically, if you're confused and then you're in the woods, it kind of represents the whole confusion of how someone can get taken and swept up in it. And that's all of the mind and stuff. That saying, oh, I'm not out of the woods yet, or I'm not out of the dark yet.
That analogy
But
is
the light,
awesome.
see, yeah, but the light in the pixie flashes through the trees, and in darkness you see light. So that is the other tag I've got. In darkness I saw light. And, again, the sayings, there's always light at the end of the tunnel. People just kind of fob these sayings off, but it's true.
It
They
is
need
true.
to be remembered. So when you're in your darkness, trust in the dark, and it will release its light to you. And that's what I had to do. I had to trust in the darkness. So I had to go through that dark place, and then the confusion to see the light to then come out and gain the strength. So that's what Pixie in the Wood represents.
It's brilliant. I love that, and I think a lot of people will. You're very good with your words. You can tell you're an author. I should imagine there's going to be more books and more things for you. What does your future look like? Let's finish on that. What do you see in your future?
Wow, it's quite funny because you said author, but actually, I actually spoke to, when I was first doing this chapter, I had the app speech to text,
Yeah.
and then I then converted it all because I personally feel like I'm a better speaker. When I speak, I speak genuinely and authentically from the heart. So, you know, um, so my future, I am upping the drive on Pixie in the Woods for the mental health and vlogging and going to be giving talks, obviously releasing my self-help tools on the page as well. So it's not just going to be in the book, it's actually actively a place people can go to get self-help tools. Um, and then I'm going to be looking to get a training program, which I've already formed, into workplaces, almost like a first aid for panic attacks.
Toolbox. It's a
I feel
toolbox.
like it should be mandatory for every single business workplace, like
Mm.
from the Poundland to like the train services, like everything. They
Yeah.
need to teach because it's surprising about how many of their employees don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Because I've had panic attacks in so many different public places now, and it is surprising just how many people don't actually know what they're dealing with. So just a little bit of skill set coming through.
And even more
And yeah, and
so,
just all
even more so with this year that we've been in
yeah,
as well. So it's a really good time for people to actually learn. Definitely.
yeah, exactly. Also learning about how things can because there's triggers on top of triggers and things like that. It's a lot of it is actually the processing takes a few days, and panic attacks are actually linked to a few days from before, and then another trigger could come along which will just push it out. Um, so that will be things like food, diet, loud noises, things like that. So it's about learning the differences. So yeah, so my future is looking bright and I'm
It
really looking
is.
forward to it. Um, Obviously the future then with the book, so that will be coming out. And then who knows from there?
Sounds amazing. Sounds amazing. We'll definitely be keeping an eye on you. Definitely. So thank you very much for being a guest on Craft to Be Kind. You've been listening to Chrissy Lowry, who's your presenter, and our absolutely fabulous guest has been Bib Charles. Thank you very much, Bib.
Thank you so much for having me.